The day the
Here it
check was
is.
torn in half,
Congratulations.
something
Wow,
inside
I
Daniel
can't
Harper
believe it.
tore with
Thank
it.
you.
This is
He had stood
incredible.
in
Really
line for
is.
nearly 40 minutes at the downtown branch of Chase Bank in Columbus, Ohio, shifting his weight from one foot to the other while his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, sat in a plastic chair near the window, coloring on the back of an old grocery receipt. Outside, early autumn leaves skittered across the sidewalk in nervous circles, as if they too sensed that something fragile was about to snap. Daniel wasn't a man who believed in miracles. Miracles were for other people, the lucky ones, the well-connected ones, the ones who didn't have overdue medical bills stacked on their kitchen counter like a leaning tower threatening to collapse. He was a single dad who worked nights loading trucks at a distribution warehouse and spent his days packing school lunches, braiding hair with clumsy fingers, and trying to explain to his daughter why mommy wasn't coming home. The check in his jacket pocket felt heavier than $10 million. It felt like hope. When his name was called, he walked up to the polished desk of the branch manager, Karen Whitmore. She was impeccably dressed, mid-40s, with sharp features softened only slightly by a strand of curls at her collar. Her office had glass walls, the kind that made privacy feel like a performance. "Yes, Mr. Harper?" she asked, barely glancing up from her monitor. Daniel cleared his throat. "I'm here to deposit a check." He slid it across the desk with careful hands. Karen picked it up, and for the first time, her eyes sharpened. The amount was unmistakable. $10 million. Issued by the Whitmore Family Foundation. Signed in blue ink. She stared at him, then at the check, then back at him. "This is some kind of joke," she said flatly. "It's not," Daniel replied quietly. "I can explain." But she was already shaking her head. "Mr. Harper, we don't appreciate fraudulent activity. This is a serious offense." "It's not fraud," he said, his voice trembling but steady. "I was told to bring it here." Karen pressed a button under her desk. Security appeared at the door. "Ma'am, please," Daniel said, glancing toward Lily, who was watching from across the lobby with wide, frightened eyes. "Just call the foundation. They know me. Please." Karen's lips tightened. "We see scams like this all the time. People trying to exploit charitable organizations. I won't have my branch associated with it." And before Daniel could react, before Lily could understand what she was seeing, Karen tore the check straight down the middle. The sound was small, almost delicate. But to Daniel, it was deafening. Security escorted him out while customers whispered. Lily clutched his hand, her coloring sheet fluttering to the floor. On the sidewalk, Daniel knelt in front of her. "It's okay," he lied, brushing tears from her cheeks. "It's going to be okay." But he didn't know how. 3 weeks earlier, Daniel had been sitting in a hospital room at Nationwide Children's Hospital, watching Lily sleep beneath a tangle of wires and monitors. A rare autoimmune condition had attacked her heart. The treatments were experimental, expensive, and not fully covered by insurance. He had sold his car, emptied his savings, started a small online fundraiser that raised a few $1,000s from kind strangers who left messages like, "Praying for you," and, "Stay strong." One night, while waiting in the hospital cafeteria, he noticed an elderly man struggling to carry a tray. Without thinking, Daniel stood and helped him find a seat. They talked. The man introduced himself simply as Thomas. Thomas had kind eyes and a tired smile. He asked about Lily. Daniel found himself telling him everything, the diagnosis, the fear. The guilt of not being able to fix it. "I'm sorry," Thomas had said softly. "No parent should have to feel that powerless." Over the next week, they crossed paths often. Daniel brought him coffee. Thomas brought Lily a stuffed bear. They never talked about money. On Lily's discharge day, when doctors explained that she needed an advanced procedure within months to survive, Thomas asked Daniel to meet him outside. "I run a small foundation," he said, handing Daniel an envelope. "We help families in impossible situations." Inside was the check. Daniel had tried to refuse. "I can't accept this. It's too much." Thomas smiled. "Kindness isn't a transaction, son. It's a responsibility. Deposit it. Take care of your little girl." Daniel had asked for his last name. "Whitmore," he'd said, "but that doesn't matter." Back on the sidewalk outside the bank, Daniel realized he should have insisted on more details. A phone number, a card, something. Instead, he had half a torn check and a daughter who needed surgery. Inside the bank, Karen Whitmore was still fuming when her assistant knocked lightly on the glass. "Ma'am," the assistant said hesitantly. "Your father is on line 1. Karen stiffened. Her father rarely called during business hours. She picked up the receiver. "Dad, I'm in the middle of something. I just received a notification. Thomas Whitmore's voice came through, calm but firm. That a check from the foundation was flagged at your branch. Karen's stomach tightened. Yes. Some man tried to deposit a $10 million check. Obviously fake. There was a pause. What was his name? Thomas asked. Daniel Harper. Another pause. Longer this time. And what did you do? Thomas's voice had changed. It was no longer gentle. I tore it up and had him escorted out. Dad, these scams. Karen, he interrupted. That check was real. Silence flooded the office. He's the father of a little girl at Nationwide, Thomas continued. He helped me when I was too proud to ask for it. I approved that donation personally. Karen felt her face drain of color. But he didn't look like someone who deserves help. Thomas finished quietly. You've spent so many years protecting money that you've forgotten what it's for. Her throat tightened. I was just doing my job. No, he said. You were doing it without humanity. The line went dead. For the first time in her career, Karen Whitmore felt small. She rushed out of her office, asking employees where Daniel had gone. No one knew. Outside, the sidewalk was empty. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in his small apartment, the torn halves of the check taped together on the kitchen table. It was useless now, he assumed. Even if it were real, who would believe him? Lily padded into the kitchen in her socks. Daddy, are we still going to fix my heart? He swallowed hard. Yes, sweetheart, we are. There was a knock at the door. Daniel opened it to find Karen Whitmore standing there, her polished image replaced by something raw and uncertain. Behind her stood an elderly man he recognized instantly. Thomas, I owe you an apology, Karen said, her voice unsteady. And more than that, Thomas stepped forward. Daniel, I'm sorry for the trouble. My daughter acted without knowing the full story. Karen looked at him, startled by the word daughter spoken with such weight. I've already issued a new check, Thomas continued. And I've called the hospital. The funds will be transferred directly to cover Lily's treatment. Daniel stared at them, unable to process it. Why? He finally whispered. Thomas smiled gently. Because you showed me kindness when you thought I was just another old man with a tray. Because your daughter deserves a future. And because money only matters when it moves. Karen stepped closer. I judged you. I saw your clothes, your file, and decided you didn't belong in my office asking for that amount of money. I was wrong. Daniel looked at Lily, who was peeking from behind his leg. We all get things wrong sometimes, he said quietly. What matters is what we do next. Months later, Lily's surgery was a success. News of the donation, and the bank manager who tore up a $10 million check, spread across local media. Karen didn't try to hide from it. Instead, she began working with her father's foundation, visiting hospitals, meeting families, listening. She learned that dignity doesn't come from a balance sheet. Daniel returned to work, but he also started a small nonprofit of his own, helping single parents navigate medical bureaucracy. He named it Lily's Light. On the first anniversary of the surgery, they gathered in a small park. Daniel, Lily, Thomas, and Karen. Children laughed nearby. The sky was impossibly blue. Lily ran up to Thomas and hugged him. Thank you for fixing my heart, she said. Thomas chuckled. I think your dad did that a long time ago. Karen watched them, eyes shining. She had spent years believing that strength meant control, that success meant never being fooled. But she now understood something deeper. Strength is compassion with courage. That day at the bank could have ended as a story about humiliation and pride. Instead, it became a story about redemption. Because sometimes the most powerful word in a room isn't million. It's, sir. And sometimes, the greatest wealth we'll ever hold isn't in our accounts, but in the simple, radical choice to see each other as human.